So, who's your pick? Trump or Clinton?
Yo, what's up, Film Club? How's it going? Did you watch Magnolia?
Magnolia.
What's happening
What's
here?
going on, boys?
Is
Ready to chat?
something already happening?
What is this?
Going on?
I'm silently judging you. Welcome to Film Club. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, 'Thus says the Lord, let my people go, so that they may worship me. If you refuse to let them go, I will plague your whole country with frogs.'" Alright guys, welcome to episode 7 of Film Club. This week we'll be discussing Magnolia, a 1999 3-hour film by Paul Thomas Anderson with an all-star cast. Critically acclaimed film. Actually, Roger Ebert in particular stood by this film when a lot of people were kind of questioning it, especially the ending. Very interesting film, picked by Lucas.
Yes.
So, Lucas, tell us why you chose this film.
This is one of my absolutely favorite films. To me, it just captures the human experience in a way that I've rarely seen in film, surpassed by perhaps only Boyhood. I think every element of humanity is present in this film, and it's just so visceral. It's almost overwhelming. For me at least, and I just think that it's an experience that every film lover should have.
Awesome.
You said every emotion or every element. I found that it's there's no birth, there's no beginning really. It's a great middle and end.
You didn't find
It's
the end was a bit of a rebirth?
Oh, a rebirth. I wasn't really taking it that way,
Yeah.
but I kept thinking I kept wanting to say this is a birth, life, death story, but there was no real birth.
Well, I think it can be how
Second
birth,
chances.
Yeah, second chances definitely, and how birth becomes corrupted. I think a major element is the current state of masculinity. Every character in the film is either their entire existence is affected by their father, or they're having their own issues with masculinity. And I think it's kind of about finding yourself or losing yourself and then trying to find yourself again. And maybe the point is that there isn't really a beginning, and that it's just, it just keeps developing.
Definitely. That's so sweet.
Awesome. Let's go around the table with some initial thoughts. Who wants to start?
Oh, damn. Okay. I'll jump on it. So again, I always feel I never have anything bad to say right up front about a lot of these films, because a lot of these film club films, these are the first time I'm actually seeing something. And with this film particularly, I don't know if I was as taken back by anything we've watched so far. This was, I don't know, I kept wanting to call it an epic, but it's not. There's no deserts, there's no wide giant shots.
It is biblical.
Escape. Yeah, it's very
literally.
Mm-hmm.
It's the words are what make it epic. It's in retrospect this kind of smallish scale idea, but blown up to such a level. It's really it's more so what the film accomplishes is what I love about it. I just my first watch really recently, so I haven't sat down to let enough of it sink in. As you said, it's very complicated and there's a lot of things you got to take in. But from that initial watch, I really enjoyed the film. It's up there in a 9 or a 10. There's very few things I was picking apart, down to this shooting style that I did not think of as very Paul Thomas Anderson. I really had a good grip on Boogie Nights and what they tried to accomplish there, and this was, man, to some of those I remember even Jamar said it felt like Wes Anderson at times, with the way he's doing all these zoom ins and pull outs and really trying to get basic flat composures a lot of the time, and like this picturesque stuff.
Shots.
Yeah, well, yeah, the follow shots kind of fall into Boogie Nights. That's kind of what I was expecting. But he really brought a lot to the table with this one. Down to like we weren't even quite sure, like putting it on. We were like, is this the right film? Is this some weird like prequel, like a Serious Man, where they're gonna give us this whole chunk in the beat? Well, which it kind of is, but it's just right from the get go. It takes you back, and that's what I really enjoyed about it. Was I was not expecting anything I got, and that's what I really loved.
Sweet. Andre?
Yeah, if I can go a little bit off what Daryl also said, is that you think it's not an epic because there's no deserts. But it's an epic in the modernist or postmodernist sense in terms of an art movement, because it takes the smallest pieces of life and treats them and like shows you that they deserve our grandest reverence, right? And I think like I was blown away in this movie in terms of the variety of different angles and different shots, and just how he really pulled out all the stops, I think, as you said, to be able to capture the essence of every scene. And even though like I still find myself not in love with this movie or enamored as I should be with this, but I'm constantly impressed with everything that I see. And I think that's partly because of how sophisticated and dense the movie is it's hard to take everything in at once and just be taken away with it. And I also really like in terms of a narrative, I like the comment on coincidences. And this movie really takes that word apart to look at it as coincidence, as in these things happen together. Right. Like not just not in the kind of loaded term of coincidences. You shouldn't relate these two things. It's this every little piece of life has another kind of billiard effect on the rest of life. It begins and ends with those like those little anecdotes.
Yeah.
So we have the person who tries to commit suicide, ends up being shot by his mother. And he loaded the gun. Yeah. Because he wanted he wanted his parents to get into a fight and kill themselves or kill each other. He ends up dying by his own hand, like in this very strange and ironic way, right? And the first story of like the like turn of the century story of this person being robbed, and there's a name coincidence in it, right? And it's just it plays on our minds kind of want to assign meaning to all these things, or to draw links and connections between everything we experience, right?
I really like the way that prefaces the frogs of all things too, because
this happens.
The one thing is I found myself way more taken back than Jamara was when we're sitting there watching it, and the one thing she had to say was like, just like they said at the beginning, it's all a coincidence. This can happen. Like they told you right from the beginning, anything can happen. This is just a giant one of those little stories, you know, and it leads to that huge coincidence.
Yeah. All right. Nice. All right, Jamara.
I was really impressed by the acting. Like I think everyone's performance.
Everyone was at the same level.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it was really refreshing to see Julianne Moore young again, and like that emotional. Philip Seymour Hoffman, I think, was probably my favorite performance. But Tom Cruise also, he was so...
He's the underdog of that movie.
Oh my god.
He was so, like, so much range from, like, the scene from when he's
almost too much.
Yeah. It was...
Who else could have played that role?
Oh, no.
Exactly.
Maybe Brad Pitt.
Maybe, but
he'd have to be on some drugs.
I was thinking about this, and I was gonna ask this as a question after about like the acting, who had the best performances. It's an all-star cast or very well-known cast, and I was thinking like maybe Tom Cruise was the worst, and I was like, no, you can't say that, because like as crazy and douchey as he was, that was what the character was, right?
Right.
And it takes a certain talent for you to be hated, right? Like, to play a character that you're just like, I want to hit you in the face. And then you realize, like, that's actually the skill in it.
Yeah.
Right? It is, like, making you think he's a slime ball.
Basically, every single character in the film, with the exception of Philip Seymour Hoffman and John C. Reilly, and the kid, and I guess Don. I guess,
Yeah.
but I was gonna say, like, they're not really good people. The only people
Right.
who have almost any redeeming qualities are obviously Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's just his tenderness just takes me aback every single time.
And he's a caretaker.
Yeah.
He's a nurse.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And then John C. Reilly's just,
He's so innocent
Yeah.
and pure.
I was actually
Yeah.
gonna say John C. Reilly.
And a little
I was
bit-
thinking
yeah.
about it, and I think that's my
A little bit
because-
of a bumbler and a bungler.
Yeah.
I just see Dr. Stephen Brule every time I see him. It's
See, I always see Dewey Cox. That's my problem. Is I just
Yeah.
expect him to break out.
pretty
into
much the
country
same
too.
guy.
Yeah.
All right, Pat.
Yeah, so what impressed me the most of the movie was its ability to portray these themes and motifs that happen in nature, and I think that's kind of where the title Magnolia comes from, and like how something early in someone's growth in their life will scar them for the rest of their life, and the film is really about the relationships that all these characters have with their parents and how it's changed them, and I thought by having so many different characters and showing these patterns of abuse, that was really effective and just extremely noteworthy. I don't think I've seen something that broad and that powerful to do with that subject ever. So I was super impressed by that. And just the acting too. Some actors who I had never heard of, but they all knocked it out of the park. They did a fantastic job. There are a lot of amazing performances in this. Some just subtleties that you can pick up on and go, wow, that's a admirable acting job. One actor who was anything but subtle in this was Tom Cruise, but you could still say he did a good acting job. I want to know people's opinion on Tom Cruise's acting job in this.
Okay, quite unexpected, given that he's more of a movie star than an actor, right? Like, put him in...
In 2016, like...
Exactly,
right,
like,
right.
yeah, given
Even before
his
that, even at that point he
filmography,
was.
given his filmography, like, he's
Yeah.
got some great movies. There's a few good men, like Risky Business.
He grew out of the roles though.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But, and to go on something that you said, that he doesn't have much subtlety, but there are a few moments when he does. When he's being interviewed,
Yes.
and he starts to get uncomfortable, and he's being pressed, and it's just, you see him, like, clench his jaw, right? And then just the camera's right up on his face, and when he's confronting his dad.
And I think the inability to read is like a harder emotion to convey than many. It's easy to just think of times you felt this and that, but you really have to put yourself in like blank slate mode. And like he does it on a dime. The second she says certain words, it's like you said, it's like you can just watch his jaw just.
That's why they have that
falling.
close up of his face,
Oh,
right? And it's just like
yeah.
just like a dead eye stare, but otherwise like just
Yeah.
like you can feel him breathing heavier. Like at
That
these
was one of my
moments, like-
favorite deliveries of his lines when he's like, "I'm just quietly judging you."
Yeah.
What are you
no,
doing?
that was actually great.
Yeah.
Now that you brought that up, I remember thinking, ooh, just being like really affected by that.
Mhm.
One moment where I wasn't, I guess, the biggest fan of his acting, but I'm definitely open to hear what everyone else has to say, is when he's kind of crying at his dad's deathbed. I thought he was just like extremely overcome and like
a little heavy-handed with it.
heavy-handed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Is that what the character called for?
He built up a huge wall. That's the thing, right? His wall is so big. He's influencing other men to go out and treat women in tons of different ways. Not even gonna get into that, but he built up such a wall. Are you kidding me? I clicked it. It's blinking.
But it's on 0.
Yeah.
Wrecked.
Oh man! So were we not record? Oh, we weren't recording for any of that.
The first bit's fine.
It's on the camera.
Yeah, I got pretty good audio on there, but
Okay.
We can shoot it.
Cool.
we can cheat it. I'll just give you the SD.
Just add some bass to it.
Fuck. Sorry, dude. I clicked it, but I put it in standby, so.
You're fired. I'm kidding.
No, fire me. I'm a cameraman.
All right.
So acting Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Daryl, you had a great point about him building up this enormous wall from, after the point Tom Cruise's character was 14 when his mother died, or he was caring for his sick mother and his father left him. So he built up this huge wall, and that's kind of why his reaction and his crying was so, I would say, melodramatic. But I just watched the trailer for Magnolia kind of to refresh my mind, because I watched the film a couple of weeks ago, and it says when it rains it pours, and it's like when it rains it pours, frogs.
Crying.
And crying as well, right?
It's one of those things where I would have killed to be on set, because I feel like you'd understand things a bit more, because when you see a performance that's given, like how you're saying, it's on that line, you're not sure. Like, I would have loved to have seen the first 12 takes leading up to it, or seeing if he was being pushed, if he was breaking boundaries each take by take, because sometimes where you end up, on the outside looking in, oh man, he's crying, it's a little bit much, but depending on each take, he could have been reiterating the things you were saying, you were left when you were 14, you had to watch your mother, he wasn't there. It could have been every single take until the break. So it's really hard to judge, especially a waterworks.
And how old is he now? Late 20s, early 30s, right? And it's almost like it's a part of himself that he hasn't even touched since he was 14. Right. And it's like he's a 14-year-old boy in that moment.
And not only that, but he's also being confronted with his father, who he's basically become, and who he also hates. Both men absolutely despise themselves as human beings and wish that they were better, but they can't find the ability to do so, which I think also ties into why they don't get that redemptive moment where Earl looks at Frank and then he sees that his son's there and they can finally talk after all these years, but they don't get that moment.
Well, yeah, he's already been dropped, right?
Right.
Yeah, he's already.
But he comes to at the end, and and he's lucid and at least enough to recognize his son. Yeah. But they don't get that moment because it's too late for them.
Yeah. Exactly.
Lucas, one of the first things you said was about Magnolia in general and why you found it to be such a groundbreaking and amazing film was the story about masculinity in it. And so I wanted to segue from Tom Cruise's character into that and to just discuss. So if you want to start us off, and we'll go on that thread for a bit.
Yeah, sure. I think so many characters in the film are either overcompensating to be a dominant masculine force or trying to find their own. Earl is obviously, kind of the prototypical successful old white man with the trophy wife. And then you have, he owns the company that runs a game show where you have the game show host who basically took whatever he wanted from whichever woman he wanted. And then conversely, you got a character like John C. Reilly's character where he's trying to do that kind of, but he doesn't know how. So he's kind of just hoping that it'll fall into his lap. That's, he's one of the few characters who believes in God, and or at least, is actually vocal about praying and hoping to find the strength for things. And I think that can be a challenge for almost anyone, not necessarily masculinity, but just trying to find yourself and the strength to progress in the world. And I think every character is struggling with that, and it's tied in with whether it be their father, their husband, or themselves.
No, that's funny because I had this in the beginning, I'm not sure how much water it holds, but I kind of got this feeling that these were all, it was like we were seeing all the chapters of the story at once. I know obviously it's not completely concise or whatnot, but like how you're saying, we've got John C. Reilly pre-marriage, feels, the way he does, has all this optimism. Then we have everybody else, they're all at these different points. We have I guess Tom Cruise feels a little post that, and then we have Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's a little post that. And it all drives back to, then we get the game show host who's now, cheated on his wife and he's in this bad place comparatively to the last character who's at death's door. They all feel like they could be telling the same story over a bunch of different timelines. And it's very, loose, but it really did I felt that connection, of like...
No, that's a very good point. Every character's relationship is at a different stage, but it's all one. Like, you can draw a line between all.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to... Yeah, thank you.
No, that's good. I caught what you were saying there in a moment. I think that's a good point, actually. How that... And that ties in back into the kind of motif of these seemingly disparate stories, yet how are we all connected?
Mm-hmm.
I read Slaughterhouse-5 recently, and I couldn't help but draw comparisons in terms of Kurt Vonnegut's portrayal of time, and almost like a True Detective way, how it's just, fourth dimension is just, this is humanity.
Flat circle.
It's just flat circle, and it's just the same things are repeated over and over. And the refrain from that book is, so it goes. And the narrator's refrain is, and so it goes, and so it goes, and so on and so on.
TV.
Yeah.
So cool. Final thoughts on this magnificent film called Magnolia.
Magnolicious.
Magnificent.
All right, Jamara, thoughts?
I think, kind of going back to the very beginning of what you guys were saying, for a 3-hour movie, it was like pretty well paced.
Oh shit, she's going back to the beginning.
Oh, it's like it's a theme.
Don't interrupt.
The pacing, I think, impressed me the most overall. And I think that was partly because of the, like, how you guys were saying, it feels like an epic, but they used, I think, probably like 6 main sets. And like it kept the movie so contained that like it was like watching like 3 1-hour movies all kind of cut together, spliced together. So I think that for like what we were given, it was perfect for 3 hours.
I'll go next. Especially after talking with everyone about this film, this has tons of rewatch value for me, so 10 out of 10, I'd watch it again. And I've already said my pertinent thoughts on it. Oh, also the biblical moments and the biblical references give it tons of depth, as well as the frogs and the motifs with nature. I'm all about that. Yeah. Andrushka?
Daryl?
I guess I'll do a tiny quick one. I don't know, I've been talking a lot. Like, I just want to like say again how much like I love the formats of filming. Like it gives me the same joy as like Grand Budapest in the way it wasn't, switching the way they film. Okay, they had a crank camera, but it wasn't so much about filming or switching the method of filming. It was a lot more about how they shot each style and how it can keep balance. It's not just a dry cinematography, and like, I mean, Robert Elswit is like one of the best, but it blew me away. Cinematography wise alone blew me away, and then the acting, I'm still processing. It was great. So, big thumbs up for me.
Alright, yeah.
You are gonna give me
I guess I do have a thought, yeah. Still impressed with everything that I've said thus far, and I think I would echo basically everything that everyone else has said too. And then once again, probably like the defining aspect of this movie for me is how on par everybody was at the same level. The directing, the acting, just the set pieces, the variety of everything. Everyone was on the same page.
All right, Lucas.
I think for me, the entire essence of the film boils down to the theme established at the beginning of seemingly serendipitous events, but the point of the film is that these are choices that human beings make, and every character has an effect on another character, and it's an entire chain, but in the end they can choose to break the chain. And I think that's the importance of the song, which personally I love. And as everyone sings to you, it's not going to stop until you wise up.
That's perfect.
Beautiful.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Great choice. I really enjoyed this
Yeah.
film.
Yeah.
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 I don't say that enough. Awesome.